everyone. I hope everyone's having a great day out there. It's Sarah here, the Able Diabetic, and I'm here with the fourth in my Diabetic Basics set of videos about hypos. And this one builds on the other three, so if you haven't seen those, you might like to check those out. We've covered a lot of the kind of real essentials previously, and now we're going to talk about some of the slightly more challenging aspects of hypos. So we're going to cover three different things here. We're going to cover what the challenges are around alcohol and hypos, what it is when you overcorrect for a hypo, and also what happens with hypos when they happen at night. So handling alcohol when you're a type 1 diabetic is a problem because alcohol itself, that is the actual substance of alcohol, when it's in your body, it impacts the way that things work, and in particular, it brings down your blood sugars so that you are more likely to have a hypo if you've ingested alcohol. However, it's not just as straightforward as that, because actually what it really is a balance between the alcohol that's in a particular drink and then the sugar factor that's in a particular drink as well. So, for example, if you were to have rum on the one hand, spirit, quite a lot of alcohol in it, and then you were going to add some Coke, as in, full sugar Coke, well, you'd end up with a drink that was so full of sugar that you wouldn't be having a hypo, you'd be going the other way. But it does depend on all the factors that are at hand and, whether or not there is a lot of alcohol going on. So if you have a pretty heavy night and there is a lot of alcohol that you're taking in, you're drinking, then may come a point where you do have a really a big hypo, but also, you might not notice it because you've been drinking, and that's where it gets really difficult. If you've had a few drinks, and I speak from experience, once you are in a hypo zone, you just might not notice in the way that you normally do. Now, the complexity around drinks is partly because there are just so many, right? There is this myriad of different kinds of alcohol that you can have, and they've all got a slightly different profile. So the only thing I can really say about this is you need to get to grips with what you're drinking. Is there something in the drink that makes it very sugary? And, in terms of, kind of fairly simple things like wine, are you drinking a dry white wine or are you drinking something which is sweeter? These things will really make a difference. So it's not a straightforward area, and you'll probably need to, take quite a lot of care as you experiment and work out how things work for you. And there is something else to say about hypos and alcohol, which is very important. It is not uncommon for people who go into a hypo as a result of being on a night out. Their blood sugars have gone too low, they haven't noticed that's happening, and then they continue to go low because they're not dealing with the problem because they haven't recognised it. Now, the actual way that you present, the way you show, how you look when you're in that situation is you just look a bit, you look a bit drunk. So I highly recommend that you tell people around you who are going to be there as well that it's a good idea if you've got people who are kind of watching how you are, because if you are acting particularly kind of wobbly, then that might be a sign that you need to check where you are and have some sugar. Otherwise, there is a serious risk that you could end up in proper problems with really low blood sugars and ending up being hospitalised. That does happen reasonably frequently for people who've had too much to drink and who are type 1 diabetic. So there is a warning out there about that. So let's talk now for a few moments about overcorrecting hypos. And really, this is quite a simple kind of concept. What it means is just when you give yourself too much sugar when you've got a hypo, and as a result, you push your blood sugars up way higher than they actually need to be. And I've tried to outline this on the pictures that you're seeing here, where on the left-hand side you can see a good example of dealing with a hypo, where the hypo's happened, corrective action has been taken, some sugar has been eaten, and the chart has increased really quickly, but it stayed in the green zone and it hasn't gone above 10, and that's really perfect. That's exactly what you want it to look like when you've had a hypo. On the other side, on the right hand side, you can see what often happens to me, where you have overcorrected. And you can see here that it goes way higher than it needs to be, and then there's a problem for a number of hours actually getting that kind of back into whack again. Why does that happen? You'd think that after years of practice that I wouldn't overcorrect, But I think in the moment, every hypo is different and requires a slightly different amount of sugar to resolve it. The factors going on in the background when they happen mean that every hypo is slightly different. And things like having recently had insulin or having recently had some exercise could mean that your blood sugars continue to go low and they keep needing treatment. And so, because of those kind of factors, I just judge it wrong sometimes and end up overcorrecting too much. And I know that I'm not alone. So it's something to be very careful about. I think the watchword here is a bit of patience, actually. If you have had, a handful of sweets or something sugary to drink, give it time, give it 10-15 minutes before you add something else into the mix. And I know that's very difficult when life is happening sometimes, but I think sometimes you just need to be kind of careful about letting things happen. And I tend not to do that. I tend to be a bit like, oh my God, I still don't feel right, so let's eat a bit more. That's the overcorrection picture. So the question of nighttime hypos and how they affect you and how different they are is a pretty important one, because clearly when you go low during your sleep, depending on how heavy a sleeper you are, it can take quite a long time before you wake up and you're aware that things are happening in the way that they are. Now these days, because I use a Freestyle Libre, I have the alarm set, and the alarm will go off when I hit 3.8. I find that really helpful at night time, so I would recommend that's what you have if you don't already use a system like that. But in terms of the kind of physical experience, often I don't realise I've got a hypo until I'm quite a lot further kind of down into the kind of low threes and maybe even like lower than 3 when the hypo happens, and it may have been going on for quite a long time. So, the experience is waking up, often feeling kind of quite disorientated, quite sweaty, body's already in a bit of a state of, kind of discomfort. And then there's the kind of question of having to get yourself up and have something to eat. I always keep sweets by my bed. And there have been periods when I've kept like a carton of apple juice because I've just found that really easy. But it's really kind of important that you don't have to go too far. And it's also important that, if you're sleeping with someone else in the same bed, that they know and that they, will be there to help you if you need help. There have been a few occasions in my life where I have been so far gone, really, really low for quite a long time, that I've needed a bit of help to get over the hypo. So the things that I've just covered are quite difficult topics, I think. They are real life. When you are living with diabetes for years and years and years, they are things that matter, that happen, that you do have to face and deal with. And they're not particularly easy, and they come with worries and stresses as well. I think, overall, the message here is, try and understand as much as you possibly can about all of the different areas. Go gradually with yourself and learn how you yourself react in different situations, and be ready to ask for help and advice if anything is worrying you about any of these areas. I think they're not to be kind of minimised. They're all quite significant impacts on life. So let's make sure that you get the support that you need for them. Thanks very much for watching this. I'm Sarah, I'm the Able Diabetic. There's lots more information on YouTube and my website. Thanks very much for watching.